Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. Very excited and proud to welcome Mr. Michael Block as our presenter today for a Q&A session. Of course, we all know Michael Block, and he needs no introduction, but Michael is the 2014 CPC champion. He's the SCPGA Player of the Year 4 times in a row from 2013 to 2016. A little background on Michael. He was born in Reno, Nevada, grew up in Iowa, and at the age of 12 moved to Missouri and attended the University of Missouri at St. Louis. He's played in 13 PGA Tour events in the past 4 years. Bunch of PGA Championships, a couple of U.S. Opens, won the Cal State Open in 2001, and his playing career is really unprecedented. And of course, we know how busy his schedule is. He's also a working man. He's the head professional at Arroyo Trabuco and Mission Viejo, where he resides as well. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series.
Hey, thank you very much, John. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I guess we'll jump right in. We got a series of questions, and also for everybody attending, this is not the typical Catalyst webinar series where Michael will be taking us through a topic on a PowerPoint. Rather, this is a Q&A session to hear about his travels and his adventures as not only as a club professional, but of course as a playing professional as well. So feel free to fire questions at me in the question box, and if they're relevant and timed well, we'll relay the questions to Michael and give him a chance to answer. I do have some questions of my own that we put together. I want to thank Bryce Seaver for that as well, and Mr. Tom Addis, of course, from the section office. The first question is, how would you advise those who are interested in the game to start playing?
Well, I think one of the most important avenues and to get people really loving the game of golf, because, you know, I keep on hearing this thing about how we're losing more golfers every year than we're gaining, and I hope that's changing over the last couple of years. But, you know, making it a social game is so important for these beginners out there. Lessons and clinics, they need a very social environment in my mind. You know, I really like how everyone's getting into playing 9 holes, because, you know, for a beginner to be out there and needing to play 18 holes, you know, shooting 150, you know, that's not fun for anybody. So I love the whole thing, getting into maybe just playing 9 holes, heck, 3 holes, just getting out there. So if clubs can start really having these avenues for beginners to sign up, which is, hey, just play 3 holes for $20 or whatever it might be in the afternoon. That's a great revenue stream for any golf course as well, and a good way to get people out there and when tee times are normally not used. One of the funny things for me is, you know, having the correct equipment that allows the game to be as easy as possible. Too often I see, you know, beginners come out for a lesson with me and their equipment is just a joke. I'd have a tough time getting their equipment airborne. And then you've got this poor guy or poor lady who, you know, they have this club that's been sitting in someone's garage for 25 years and someone gave it to them. The grip is just, I mean, as slippery as all get out. And if I swung at the club to go flying out of my hand. And so I'm sitting here going, first thing I've got to do is get them a 7-iron with a nice tacky grip that feels good, with a nice flexible shaft that's going to kick that ball up in the air, you know, because it's so vital that their first experience in the game is enjoyable. The last thing you want to have do is come out to the driving range and have a horrible time, because they will not come back. One of the big things I love doing is, you know, I've got these clinics, these beginner clinics out there, and the first thing I do is I get one of the servers from O'Neill's, our restaurant, to actually come down to the range, and they take drink orders. It doesn't have to be alcohol, or most of the time it seems like that is, but that definitely makes it fun, and all of a sudden it's a lighthearted event. We have some music going or something like that. It's very, very important. You know, always in the past you've seen with these type of areas, you know, 9 and wines, and just, you know, if you can somehow pair up a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner and make it a very social event, I find that to be very, very important, and that's what keeps them coming back.
And when did in your own life, in your own career, when did you know playing was a priority? Did it start out as you got into the business to work, or were you a player from the start? And when did you know that your calling in this field, we all as PGA members, we wear so many hats. When did you know that playing was going to be such a vital part of yours?
I've been in love with the game for as long as I can remember. My father got me into the game when I was a very young boy, age 2 or 3, but never too serious, like ever too serious. I really don't remember playing in very many tournaments whatsoever as a kid. I lived in Iowa, so our season was very short. And honestly, I learned when I was a young boy, age 5, 6, and 7 in a park, just kind of hitting at Credit Island Park in the middle of, Mississippi River, just around from tree to tree. We didn't belong to a club or anything like that at that point. As I grew a little older, I was playing all the sports. I was playing, I was the pitcher on the baseball team in Iowa, and then played soccer and a couple other things. But then as I got a little older, we actually joined a club when I was around 10, 11 years old, Rock Island Arsenal Golf Club back. It's actually an island in between Iowa and Illinois in the Quad Cities. Believe it or not, it's an actual island in the Mississippi River, but a beautiful, beautiful golf club. Was lucky enough to learn how to play there. At the same time, it wasn't just, back then, it wasn't the full-time sport. You can't really do that in Iowa. I was also playing tennis. So I was playing tennis and golf. We moved to St. Louis. Ends up being my best friend's the best tennis player around. So we end up, I started playing tennis all the time. I ended up the first 3 years of high school, I didn't even play on the golf team. I was on the tennis team, and it was more of a social thing for me. But I was still playing golf on the weekends with my father. I played in the skins game with his buddies, and so that was an avenue for me to have a little spending money. So finally, my senior year of high school, the school allowed me to play both sports, which were both spring seasons. So I was able to play golf and tennis my senior year. Still at this point, I wasn't going to play college sports at all. But then all of a sudden, the coach from University of Missouri, St. Louis calls me because I ended up winning the St. Louis District Amateur Championship out of nowhere. So he calls me, wants me on the team, and I go play for him. So I wasn't recruited whatsoever out of high school to play college golf. And I kind of believe that's why at an older age, I'm still going, I'm still pumped up because I got started so late. I've been lucky that way. For me, when did golf become a priority? Boy, I'll tell you what, I always knew I wanted to be in the golf business or around golf. I just love it to death. But honestly, not until after college when I wanted to get a job did I realize the only way I'm going to be happy is if I'm going to a golf course every day of my life. So that's when I became a assistant golf professional.
Now, in terms of your role at Arroyo Churruco, I mean, a lot of us that work at clubs, I mean, our club and where we work is all consuming. And of course, you're a well-loved head professional at your property. How do you do that and still play and be abroad as much as you are? Could you allude a little bit to how you maintain your relationships at the club and maybe who you use on property to rely on that's there when you're not? How do you do that?
Well, there's no way in the world that I would be able to do what I do without the support from the club. Jeff Cram, the club manager and, certified Class A PGA professional, who I'm sure is in his office listening to this right now. He's been huge. We've worked very closely together for the last 14 years here at the club. And him and then the general manager, Matt Donovan, are just huge, huge supporters. And without them, there's no way in the world I would have been able to do pretty much any of these playing accomplishments that you were talking about. So, hats off to them. I'm very lucky. I was very lucky to land here at Arroyo, and I haven't even considered going anywhere else, and I love it here, and I plan on handing my keys to my boy in the future off, and he can have this office. But in the same time, there's no way I could also be away at these golf tournaments without the support I have from the assistant golf pros. My first assistant, Chris Lungo, I mean, he's the man. I fully trust everything he does. I don't question any of it. So when I'm gone, he's got the reins and he does a great job. And I've got Bobby Nickel, another player. You know, he's about to get his Class A, so he's doing great. Chris is about to get his Class A. So, you know, I'm looking forward to getting these guys head pro jobs and moving on and then training some new guys underneath. But, you know, all in all, this combination of a player, a head golf professional, a teaching professional is a dream come true, because to tell you the truth, I'm not good enough just to play golf on the tour. I couldn't sit in my office all day, and I most definitely couldn't teach all day. But when I have the combination of those three, it is absolutely perfectly suited for me, and I absolutely love coming to work.
That's great. You talked about Mr. Cram being on the call. He is indeed on the call, listening to the interview. Okay, well, I did ask you about how do you balance both playing and your job at the club. Do you have a regimented schedule, or can you talk a little bit about how you basically plan your day, your week, your month, especially in the context of qualifiers where you're not really sure what your schedule is going to be like after that qualifying, if you qualify or you don't qualify? How do you plan your job and your game?
I love Outlook. You know, I use my personal calendar on Outlook and my event calendar here at the club constantly. I have pretty much every golf tournament we're going to have here at the club, every lesson I have on that, and then also I book out every tournament that I plan on playing on that calendar. One of the biggest things, honestly, is that I don't have a normal day off. That's one thing, and I don't have a normal vacation. I never sit around the house and at any point. I never have a normal vacation, which my wife gets on me a little bit about the fact that in the last 14 years, we haven't actually just gone to a beach and sat on a chair. You know, every single vacation is a golf tournament, and I'm probably not the most fun person to be around at every golf tournament, but, you know, there's my reminder right there. But so, yeah, it's unbelievable. Having the support of my wife, this wouldn't be possible. I mean, I can completely see why a lot of golf pros are unable to play and be a head professional or director of golf or even assistant professional in this business. It just takes up so much time. A lot of clubs, you know, they don't have the Jeff Cram or the Matt Donovan who would allow their professional, or the members that would allow their professional to be gone as much as I am gone in these tournaments. I hope I give them value by representing the club out as I do, and I hope I give back in that way, and I think that's why they allow me to do this. But I do know that most golf clubs in the country, and especially in Southern California, expect their professional to be in their office or at the golf shop 6 days a week and almost every week of the year. So I'm very blessed in what I have. I think everything happens for a reason, so I think I was put here for a reason.
Now, your son is becoming an established junior star. I think he's 11 or 12 years old. Can you talk a little bit about how you are fostering his growth in the game in terms of introducing him to all the avenues that are at his disposal, being Michael Block's son, but at the same time being cautious of not putting too much pressure and letting him become his own player? How do you go about being a father to a aspiring junior star like your son is?
Well, funny stories. I mean, to tell you the truth, a couple times early on especially, I was that father that I hate. I was saying things when he was on the range or on the golf course that I would immediately stop myself and go, are you really being that dad right now? That guy that my whole life that I'm like, how could any father say that to their son? And I caught myself early on doing that. And I really had to take a look at myself and how I was going to approach my son in the game and in life in general from that point forward. And it hurt. I couldn't believe that I was turning into that dad. But now after the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, I've really laid off a lot. We play golf all the time, and it's my favorite thing in the world to do. But a funny story, though, a huge way that I got him into this, and selfishly, I started the PGA Junior League here, 3, 4 years ago, because I really wanted my boy to be on the team. So we started a team, and the team's been unbelievable. We just lost our first match in 4 years last week. But Dillon really wants to be on that all-star team, and the all-star first match is while and during the PGA Championship in a couple of weeks. So I told Dillon, I go, I'm so sorry, buddy, that you can't try to qualify for the all-star team this year because we will not be here during the first match. And he literally goes, Dad, it's okay. He goes, you know what? I'll just stay here. I'll miss the PGA Championship. I really want to play in an all-star. And that really hit home. I'm like, my gosh, how much this kid loves it. He goes, Dad, you're going to qualify next year. I'm like, Dillon, you never know. But I go, we don't have anyone for you to stay with or anything like that. So, but he literally loves the junior league so much that he had no problem missing the PGA Championship in St. Louis, which was unbelievable to me. And I just love it. And then the drive, chip, and putt, I host it here at the club. We have the sub-regional here at Arroyo, and I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you I kind of have it here on a little bit of an advantage for my two boys when if they made it through, even though it really hasn't worked out well as of yet. But, the avenues that the PGA has created for these juniors has been tremendous. And, for them to be able to come to Arroyo, play golf, learn golf, be around the pros and the members here has been amazing. When I started here at Arroyo, I did not have children. I now have an 11 and 13-year-old. So they've literally grown up at Arroyo, which I feel very lucky.
I didn't realize that you had been there that long. That's remarkable. I think, we always catch ourselves as fathers out there. We always catch ourselves walking down that road of being that dad, and it's funny that we have those opportunities to turn around. What is your biggest win, and then what is your most important win?
Without a doubt, that's the same tournament. It's the 2014 Professional National Championship, which is what it was called when I won. It's a funny story on that one. I'd gotten my Class A in 2012, and then obviously my first goal was to qualify for that, and I happened to qualify. I finished, I think, second that first year when Helen Shear shot 65 in the final round and beat me in a playoff. But so we qualified for the PNC. We go to Myrtle Beach, having no idea what to expect whatsoever. We get there 2 days prior, and so I'm going to get a practice round on each golf course. And so I play the non-championship course, the one that we only play once, the first round in the practice round. And then the second day, I'm on the 8th hole of the other golf course that we're going to play 3 days. And there's a lightning storm. And I had booked an afternoon round, and this was on the Saturday. So we ended up having to leave the golf course, and I never get to see basically the last 10 holes of the championship golf course, which is, I'm actually teeing off on the back 9 on the first round. So I'm going in blind. So my caddy, Josh Hurst, goes out and walks the 9 holes as I'm warming up, and we go out there blind, and I have a decent round, whatever else, and then a better round the second one down the course I'd seen, and then just hold on for the next couple rounds, and am able to somehow pull off a playoff win over Jamie Broach, and that really changed my life. That tournament is definitely a life changer, as they say on the commercials. It was a $75,000 first place prize, and my club sponsor gave me an additional $25,000 bonus. So that was a $100,000 win. I believe the most I'd ever won prior to that might have been $8,000 in a golf tournament. This enabled me to buy our first home in Orange County, which was huge. It enabled me to play in 6 PGA Tour events that year. I was able to pick 3 of them, which was amazing. And then I got to play in 3 of the opposite of the World Golf Championships. And then on top of that, was able to play in the PGA Championship at Valhalla, and then represent the United States of America in the PGA Cup against Europe. So to say the least, it really did change my life. No one can ever take that away from me. That trophy's sitting here in my office, and it really means a lot to me. And the relationships I've built now from the other past champions is just amazing. The PGA has a champions dinner every year at the PPC and our international championship that we get to go to, and all the wives have become best friends. It's been an amazing experience. What the PGA of America does for our national championship and for the past champions is absolutely amazing. And then on, top of it, that they're still allowing 20 of us to make it to the PGA Championship every year from our national championship is just, just a very lucky. We're just beyond lucky in this organization that they allow us to do this, to literally live our dreams and to allow dreams to become possible.
Talk about opening doors. What do you think the SCPGA provides ample opportunity to compete as well as sharpen your game?
I think it does. Obviously, we've come up with, we haven't, but the SCPGA has come up with a lot of different opportunities or avenues, from senior events to APA. All still my best friends out there in the section I met from the North-South Cup, literally 10 years ago. And those are still my best friends out there. It's an amazing experience, and I recommend it to everybody. But I think there are ample opportunities, but I think we can still grow. I think there's tons of room for growth. I mean, tons. I love it when we get the section championship going and all of a sudden we have 150 members out playing. I think we should be able to do that more often. Kind of taking what's successful throughout the country, and such as, I was just up in Portland for the US Open sectionals, a month and a half ago. And one thing that they do up there in that section is that they have gross and net games in all of their section events. Not obviously the championships, but in most of the events, there's a net side to it. And we all have the availability of having a handicap and establishing a handicap and having one that we go with to these tournaments and playing a net and a gross game. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of the gross game, but I'm also a big fan of getting everyone out there and playing, because it's very frustrating to me when I hear these head pros that haven't played golf in a year or two or have given up the game. I think you would have gotten a different business if you would have guessed 20 years later you don't play golf anymore. So I think it's vital that we get the purses increased for these guys. We have more participation. I love what the Inland Empire chapter does for their chapter championship. They have basically a big pro-am that is a huge fundraiser. I just donated a foursome to the Inland Empire chapter just yesterday to increase their purse, and I mean, that's such a great idea. I don't see why every chapter can't do that. I mean, what they play for is amazing. And is all it is they're putting together a pro-am. So I think there's a lot of different ways we can do this. I really look forward to, I already told everyone, between the age of 45 and 50, I'm going to be on every board possible with the section, and I'm going to try to do everything I can. I think that's the time in my life where I'll be able to give back as much as possible to the section and to the PGA, who's given me a lot already. So I look forward to that. I look forward to giving my 2 cents on the tournament committees on the board, and it'll be good. I look forward to it, and I really do. I want to grow this game to our other professionals. And I really want to get everyone off and behind their desks and out on the golf course.
Michael, inside that answer, you said you benchmarked or earmarked ages 45 to 50 in terms of civic involvement with the PGA, both on a chapter and sectional level. What is the significance of that age period in your life, and what do you foresee?
100%. That is, it's kind of like when you see those tour guys go on the web.com in that little age group. To be honest, I'm so busy between work and playing at this point. There's no way I could give it my 100% at this point. So I don't want to do it now. I'm 42 now, so I'm not too far off. But in a couple of years, I find that's going to be huge. And then obviously when I turn 50, I'm going to have maybe 5 to 10 years max to apply, my golf game to both the regular and senior events. So that will be a tough time as well. So between 45 and 50, I'm going to give it 5 years, and I'll do everything I can for the section and the PGA between those years.
I'm sure TA is marking his calendar right now. What recommendations do you have for anyone who likes to play and hone their skills as a player?
So are you referring to professionals?
Yes, for members that are on the call that
Yep.
Stand a very good chance to compete on a sectional or chapter level. How do they improve their game to compete against the pool that they're in?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's just like me or anyone else. I mean, it's just you literally have to put that time aside. It's like those who work out every day and they wake up at 5 a.m. and go work out. It's the same exact thing. I mean, I wrote down, basically for me, it's when I've got a big tournament coming up, I will wake up an hour earlier and I come to work 1 hour earlier, and I'll be on the back of the range practicing for that hour before I start giving lessons or coming to my office. If that doesn't work out, then I'll be out there hitting balls during a lunch break or try to get a putting contest going between myself and Jeff or one of the guys in the golf shop. As always, try to stay after work rather than just get in the car. And it's really easy to get in the car and go home and have a Coors Light, but that's not, what I want to do. I want to try to just spend 30 more minutes here at the club and go down there and have a putting contest, like I said, or go to the short game area and refine the skills out there. One of the most important things for me is actually scheduling it on my calendar, as if I'm giving a lesson to Mr. Smith. I literally put my name, Michael Block, on my own calendar at a certain time of the day previously, the week before. So I don't schedule anything during that time. If it needs to move, obviously, for meetings, etc., I will. But for me, having it on my calendar is the most important thing, because it really just, puts a little more pressure on me to get out there and actually utilize that time that I've put to the side. Creating goals, and I don't care what your goal is. Your goal could be still breaking 80 or breaking 70 or playing well enough to get into the section championship, or whatever it might be. I know what happens to people is that you don't play enough, and then all of a sudden you're embarrassed, and at one point you're a really great player, and then it's not fun anymore, and you don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to post a score. You don't want to play with a member and embarrass yourself. These are all reasons why I think everyone needs to get out there and start practicing, but you can't just do it the day or the week before. You've got to do it 6 months out. You got to kind of prepare for it. It's not something you can just throw yourself into at the last second. Something I did for a long time here before I was playing in all these section events, when we started opening up this club, is I just put together a weekly skins game. Every Tuesday morning, we were the first 4 groups off. We were at 6 a.m. ball in air. We're done at 9:30. We're back in our offices. But every single week we had a skins game, and it didn't matter if you worked outside service or in the golf shop or in the restaurant. We did it every single week, and everyone loved it. It was fantastic. But whatever it is, it's just all about getting out there, and not putting pressure on yourself. But you have to get out there. There's no way. Golf is such a difficult sport, and if you're not putting really enough time into it, it's not going to give back to you as I'm sure you would like it to. So it's just so vital to be out there. I could go skiing like once every 3 years, and I feel like I skied yesterday. Or if I could play tennis, it feels like I played tennis yesterday. But man, I'll tell you what, I take a week off from golf. I don't have any golf balls. It feels like I just took off 6 months. So it's one of those sports that we have to get out there. And I know we're all in this sport because we all love the sport and we love playing golf. We're not, we didn't all get into it just to be behind our desk. So even if one person out there on the line today hits more golf balls or plays another 9 than they would have prior to then today, that's huge for me.
Now, in terms of preparation and honing your skills, obviously fitness is such a big part of the game at that level. Can you talk a little bit about your regiment and how you take care of yourself and workout schedules?
So, funny story. About, what was it? Right when I turned 30, I believe it was 30, 33, I started feeling like, I was getting old and man, I need to work out. All these guys I'm playing with are bombing it and on the tour. So I went and started working out just on my own and played the worst golf of my life. I lost this weight. I was super tight. I couldn't extend my arms. I don't know. I probably was doing it wrong, but plain and simply, working out didn't work for me. I'm definitely more of that Freddie Couples approach. You can't pull fat, so working out, not so much. Making sure that I'm flexible is huge. I definitely have more of that style swing, I would say. I'm a field player, so I need the flexibility. But if you are going to work out, obviously it needs to be very golf specific workouts, programs. I've always wanted to get into yoga or Pilates or something like that because I feel that would be fantastic for the game. Yet at the same time, it's just been a very strange thing for me over the last 5 or 6 years. I've been playing the best golf of my life, and I am so afraid to add anything new into it because as what happened to me at that one point, I went and worked out, on my own. Sure, I'm just doing the wrong workouts at that point, but it didn't help me. So, I'm definitely a club professional who, isn't out there in the gym like those tour pros are, and you can probably see it when I get out there and play against them. But at the same time, I don't want to mess around with the game that I have right now. If I was struggling and I was losing a lot of distance, etc., then I would definitely be in the gym hardcore. But I'm trying not to mess with what I call a good thing.
So you would say that you basically have no fitness program. How about dietary?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to watch my weight. Jeff and I, we order lunch almost daily from the restaurant here, and it's we try to stay away from the burgers or the pizza. There's so much good food, and we try to get the salads as often as we can and try to be healthy. And I'm lucky enough to have a wife that is a health freak. So she definitely supplies me with lots of chicken breasts and vegetables on a nightly basis, which is a key. Now, on the other hand, as some of you, if any of you have ever really hung out with me too much, I do like to go out, and I love going to a steakhouse, and I love a glass of wine. So try to keep that in moderation as much as possible. But I definitely am more towards the Miguel Angel Jimenez routine than I am the Brooks Koepka routine.
That's the spectrum right there. That's one end to the other. Talking a little bit about this year's PGA Championship. Qualifying for this year's PGA, has that been different? And is that a different outlook, a different feel now that it's going to be so close to your hometown versus PGA Championships you played in the past?
It's night and day. So the other two, one was at Valhalla and the other one was at Baltusrol, who I knew nobody at those, so it was definitely had a different feeling. At Belle Reve, I'm going to have all my high school and college friends out there, which is going to be amazing, along with my family. I've had this tournament, the PGA at Belle Reve, on my calendar since the day it was released. So I've been putting an extreme amount of pressure on myself over the last couple of years, as anyone would tell you that's around me. I've talked about it nonstop. I think it was actually huge that I was able to qualify for the U.S. Open this year because the week leading up to the our national championship, I was at Shinnecock, and so my head wasn't on it whatsoever until after my first round at the U.S. Open. I knew I wasn't going to make the cut, so that's when my head kind of went and started focusing in on our national championship up in Monterey. But all in all, it was kind of interesting. I was almost too tired and too caught up into the U.S. Open to worry about the qualifying for Belle Reve. And then when we got there, I didn't have the best couple rounds, just snuck through thanks to my boy who found that ball underneath that tree and was able to have a good round on the third round and move up in the ladder and kind of set me up for the PGA. So now when that putt went in the playoff to get into Belle Reve, a huge relief was off my shoulders. And, I'm actually going back there next week for a quick 2 days to get a couple practice rounds in at Belle Reve, and then headed back there in 3 weeks to play in the tournament. And I couldn't be more excited. It's one thing just to play in the PGA, but it's actually more than anything. I haven't been back to my hometown in 15 years. So for me to go back to some restaurants and some places I used to hang out as a kid will be a lot of fun, and to see these friends who I haven't seen in 20 years is going to be amazing. But yeah, to say the least, playing the PGA Championship, and not only the PGA Championship, it's the 100th PGA Championship. I mean, it's surreal that, like I said previously, that the PGA of America allows us to be able to do this, and I feel very lucky to be able to head back to St. Louis.
Shinnecock Hills. Can you talk about that Thursday and Friday round and the difficulty? And of course, you know, it was the last two U.S. Opens that have been at Shinnecock. Course conditions have been, you know, definitely a topic of conversation in terms of too difficult. Can you talk about that in your own words?
100%. Yeah, the golf course is amazing. Shinnecock is an amazing. The venue couldn't have been better. The setup was not amazing. You know, I played in one other U.S. Open and happened to be at Oakmont in 07, and the setup was perfect. The pin placements were great. It was a fair test of golf in every way, whether you played in the morning or afternoon or on Thursday or on Sunday. It was very difficult. I remember the cut was plus 11 at Oakmont, and the winner was plus 5. So it's actually even more difficult than Shinnecock, but it had, you know, everyone was a fan of it. Now, here you go at Shinnecock, and I played at 2:45, which is the last tee time on the first day. And something I shouldn't have done was I was watching TV at the house we had rented with Jeff and my general manager and my superintendent, who'd all come out to watch, and my family, and we're watching the television coverage of Jordan and Rory 10 and 11, 12 over, and just getting beat up. And I felt like I was going to a UFC fight more than a golf tournament. And it was brutal. That afternoon tee time was all baked out. The pin locations were absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I've played in, I can't even count how many golf tournaments in my life, and there is no way in the world I would have been able to guess where these pins would be located. I mean, they were absolutely on the side of slopes, 3 feet off the green. And then not only would the ball roll off that slope, as you saw, and just roll into some deep rough or roll into the fringe, it would roll 40 yards off the green to a location that you're now making double or triple at best. And I'll never forget, you know, I was playing a practice round with Tyler, who plays on the Georgia Tech golf team, and he was kind of asking me some questions, and I was throwing out my little fake holes around the greens, and he goes, "Where do you think these pins will be?" I'm like, "Oh, you know, they're usually pretty fair with them, and, you know, not on too big of slopes." And boy, I'll tell you what, I got onto the first hole that first round and saw where they put that pin, and I would have never in my life guessed that's where they would have a pin location, and I knew I was in trouble. 85 shots later, yeah, I was in trouble. It was brutal. Then we tee off the next morning. I have a 9 a.m. tee time, and it's blowing 30 miles an hour with sideways rain for the whole front 9, but at least the greens had slowed down a little bit, and they were actually receptive. On the same hole the day before, I couldn't hold a sand wedge because they were so firm, and the next day I could hold a 4-iron. So that's how much the golf course changed based on the time of the day. I can see why the players that played on Saturday and Sunday were super frustrated. And I don't believe the USJ really needs to do that much to a great venue such as Shinnecock. I mean, in the practice rounds, the golf course is brutally hard, but also fair. The green speeds were fair, the firmness of the greens were fair, and the pins were fair. You know, I mean, I really feel you could hold the U.S. Open at a lot of these venues. Just go in there, and you don't need to do anything special. You don't need to try to overthink what people should shoot, and you don't need to overthink the setup. So, you know, it was a great experience, et cetera. But all in all, I mean, it was also a very frustrating experience.
So, in terms of the practice round, you know, the course being a fair test, and then it being so dramatically different when you went into Thursday, can you relate that to the two PGA championships that you've played in terms of what those practice rounds were like going into those first days, and how they were different from that of a U.S. Open?
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of the green speed, nothing changes at the PGA. during the practice rounds at Valhalla and Baltusrol, the rough height, the fairway tightness, the fairway firmness, the greens tend to get just a little bit firmer, but not much. But without a doubt, on your Wednesday practice round, the greens the next day are an extra foot to foot and a half faster. That's the biggest part. But they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect. I think the PGA of America does an amazing job with their setups of the PGA Championship. Super fair. The fairway widths are nice. The rough length is, it's penal, yet at the same time you can advance it. And then the green speeds and green firmness is of a championship, major quality. And obviously the venues have been fantastic. Being able to go back to Baltusrol was amazing 2 years ago. And I believe Bellerive is going to be pretty similar to Baltusrol. But yeah, the setups at the PGA Championships have been unreal.
The dynamic between the two associations and how they go about setting up their major is it's fascinating. And just to change speeds a little bit here, kind of a fun question. This one's from the field this morning. What is your favorite destination for a member golf trip? Can you talk about some of the places you've gone with your members?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bandon Dunes, Pebble Beach a lot. I actually took 12, funny story is I took 14 members this year to the Masters. So went to the Masters, and I was lucky enough to allow my 13-year-old boy for his birthday, when he turned 13, as his present, he got to go with me to the Masters, which was an amazing experience. And to see 50, 60, 70-year-old men, just absolutely with almost tears in their eyes walking into Augusta National for the first time is pretty special. Same thing, when you're walking down Pebble and you're walking down 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and watching a 50-year-old absolutely have tears in their eyes while they're playing golf for their first time at Pebble Beach is worth every penny. Trying to think where else. We went to Half Moon Bay up at the Ritz-Carlton. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I usually take about 32 guys every year on a trip somewhere. We have yet to really do too many cross-country trips just because of the amount of time it takes. So we try to keep it on the West Coast. But yeah, it's been a blast. I think we've been doing that for about 10 years now. And my favorite one is probably Pebble Beach. That's still my favorite golf course, I think, in the world. And every once in a while, we get to pop over to MPCC or Cypress Point and tee it up in one of those while we're out there. So that's definitely, I would go with Pebble Beach.
Okay, any more questions from the field? Oh, I do. Actually, this one, here's a question that's close to home. You have achieved so much, please forgive me, I got to read them in little one line at a time. You have achieved so much in playing golf in the last 5 or 6 years, so many tournaments won and tour events played in. Is that about how you imagined your playing career going?
I would have never dreamed of it in my life. It's kind of funny. I was interviewed for something for a magazine right as I had just gotten my Class A. And my goals at that point were basically to qualify for the PNC, which I won like 6 months later, to qualify for the PGA Championship, which I did that year, to play in the Farmers and the Northern Trust, and to be the Player of the Year. So those are my goals. I had written down in an article, and I look back at that article and I'd achieved those goals, and never in my life would I have thought that everything after that would have happened. But if you had a wife like mine who's not happy with third, much less second, I didn't have much of an option other than trying to win everything.
Now, how do you change your goals to stay motivated to compete in section events, tour events, and majors?
The section events, I'm not happy unless I win. The tour events, I'd made quite a few cuts at the beginning. I haven't made a cut lately. So obviously, you know, in a tour event, it's just to play as well as I can, shoot as low as I can, be as comfortable as I can under that scenario. But without a doubt, my big goal is to make a cut in a major championship. I've been close in the PGA Championship a couple times. I haven't really been too close in the U.S. Open, but I kind of feel that the St. Louis PGA Championship in my hometown on zoysia grass with bent grass greens is going to be one of my best opportunities. So that's definitely my last goal that I have at this point, is to make a cut in a major. And then my second one would be to once again be on a PGA Cup team, but one of them that would actually is in Europe. That would be a dream come true to go represent the United States of America in Europe.
Favorite? Well, you just touched on it. Zoysia grass. Is that your favorite green to putt on?
No, bent grass. Yeah, zoysia fairways, bent grass greens. Some of my favorite fairways are the Kikuyu, actually. Kikuyu or zoysia. I grew up on zoysia back in St. Louis, but like the Kikuyu fairways at Riviera, I just, you know, how that ball sits up. And I love chipping off Kikuyu as well. So if you can give me some nice Kikuyu fairways and rough and some bent grass greens, I feel pretty good.
Least favorite green to putt on?
Very grainy Bermuda. Yeah, that's Florida Bermuda is probably my unfavorite, and then the some Dallas, Texas rough is where the ball sinks to the bottom. You know, those, and you get some weird flyers. Those are definitely my most unfavorite. You know, or maybe I don't really, the tour pros come out here and play at Torrey or Riv, and they're complaining about the Poe greens, and, we're out here and we're on them all the time. I think they're perfect. Those greens, how they have them at Riv and at Torrey are so good. And you've got tour pros that don't even come and play in those events just because of those. So I guess they're just super spoiled.
Now the bandage on your left wrist, when did you injure it, and what are you doing to alleviate the pain?
Yeah, growing up in Iowa and St. Louis, every single winter, every range ball was hit off a rock hard mat. So I injured that back in the day, and then actually back then I did get MRIs. I had 2 MRIs, X-rays, everything, and they could never really pinpoint what it is. But I've realized what I can and cannot do. I can't do a push-up. I can't do a pull-up. I can't lift up heavy objects in certain positions. So I've really realized what I can and can't do with it, which is huge. And then wrapping it is gigantic too, because if I don't, it becomes weak very quickly, like literally within the day. And then when I did make the drive from St. Louis out to Southern California for my first job at the Lakes Country Club in Palm Desert, I drove 24 hours, and I'd use my left wrist most of the time when I was driving, and I literally couldn't play golf for 6 months when I arrived because of my left wrist. So to this day, it tweaks especially when it's cold and muggy out. It definitely tends to be very, very, I can be very tentative with it. So it's a little scary. And I have to adjust my grip on the fly every once in a while, make my left hand weaker in order to alleviate the pain.
I believe that, here we go. We got another one. What was it like to play with Monty for the first 2 rounds of the PGA Championship?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've played with a couple characters such as Bubba Watson and Patrick Reed and Monty Montgomery, who might not have had the best reputations going into it, but Monty completely stumped that reputation, because I'll tell you what, that guy is a class act. He walked down every fairway talking to me about the Ryder Cups and the European Tour. I mean, I grew up, the first thing I do, even to this day, I wake up and I watch the European Tour on the Golf Channel Thursday through Sunday, and I love watching it. And so I watched Monty dominating the European Tour growing up as a kid on TV. And then for me to be paired with him the first 2 rounds in 2014 at Valhalla, was definitely a dream come true. But yeah, he is awesome, and he's now, he does a great job commentating as well. But he just got a lot of beef because he does have some big ears. That's for sure. He definitely hears everything when he's out there. But not literally big ears, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, he's a great guy, first class for sure.
And of course, we have to ask, since you mentioned, were your rounds with Bubba Watson and Patrick Reed, and can you talk a little bit about those experiences?
Yeah, being nice. Patrick Reed, he's a good guy. He knows who he is. He knows his deal. Played with him the first 2 rounds at the Northern Trust in 2013 or 14. Him and Robert Streb. And Robert Streb's probably one of the sweetest, nicest guys I've ever met in my life. And then we played with Patrick, and he had his wife on the bag, and we were playing together. And not the most social guy in the world. No, he's not. It wasn't anything horrible or anything like that. But we did catch him saying a little word walking down the last fairway. My caddy heard him tell his wife that he couldn't believe he was getting beat by a club pro. Because I made the cut and he missed it by a couple.
Bet you that was satisfying. I gotta keep getting questions coming in here. Okay, so you're so good at hitting clutch shots when you need to. Can you talk about your pre-shot routine and your mental game and how that helps you play well under pressure?
Yeah, I need to somehow find that internal, like everyone, including my family, my parents and my wife and my kids, they have supreme confidence in me when I get into a playoff. They say I change. They say I'm more calm. They say I don't complain and whine so much. They say I don't get mad. So I need to find that internally where I am in that mode. And it is weird. It is actually strange. And I that's something I'm still working on to this day. I was lucky enough just to have a match versus Patrick Cantley, a couple days ago, and watching him over a golf ball and how 100% committed in his own world he is on every shot is something I need to do even more. And I tend to do that under the big situations, which has worked out nicely for me. But I feel if I was able to pull that into my routine, even just on the first, second, and third round, and I think I could take it to the next level there. And that's something I'm really going to focus on at the PGA Championship in a couple of weeks, is putting that playoff mentality in me from the beginning, and being a little more, controlled. A lot of times you probably wouldn't need a commentator for me. I tend to commentate everything and probably talk a little too much and say things I shouldn't every once in a while. But that's definitely something I'm still working on. I'm 42 years old, and I feel like I still have another 15 years of golf in me. So I'm still working on things all the time. You wouldn't believe how much stuff I'm working on. But yeah, it's been fun. I've been somewhat successful in those clutch moments, and I'm definitely going to try to learn from those moments and take that to my normal play.
Very good, Mr. Block. That that concludes all the time we have for this morning's interview. I really, on behalf of the Education Committee for the SCPGA, thank you very much for making the time to do this today. We know how busy you are. For all the attendees on this morning's call, as usual with the Catalyst webinar series, we'll be sending out a 10-question quiz on this morning's interview. Please take the quiz and return the quiz to Sharon Kerfman at skerfman@pgahq.com. A score of 70% on the 10-question quiz will earn 1 MSR credit for attending this morning's call. Mr. Block, thank you again, and have a great day, everybody. Take care.